It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
No fear, 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 no fear here in Clare. Your independence of me, Ernest Hancock, in the Sonoran Desert on the little old place, the Love Bus. We're going to go ahead and switch it up. I wanted to make sure that you guys got to hear this. Chris Hampton and Luke Denis, we got Luke on. They have United Freedom Party. Now, I need to know, just about every one of those words, what they mean by that. And, I'll just give you a quick, short bio on each one of the individuals, and you'll kind of, get a gist of what's going on. I'll let them introduce themselves. But here we have Luke. His short bio is he's an outspoken, successful, self-made man, father of 2 grown children, who has dedicated his life to speaking truth, fighting for freedom. Luke also co-authored a large book entitled The Freedom Handbook. Ooh, freedom's got a handbook. Well, that's good. And recently co-founded the United Freedom Party of Alberta, found at freedomisaparty.com. Now, his cohort, Chris Hampton is a curious generalist and pragmatic optimist of the highest order, a faithful, passionate artist, athlete, co-author of the Freedom Handbook, senior freelance copywriter, and co-founder of the United Freedom Party of Alberta. Okay, so Canuckans. All right, this is and the experience that they've had in Canada. Man, that'll get you learnified. I'm wondering, Luke, the last few years of the experience that you've had with vaccines, mandates, lockdowns, all this stuff. Is that what prompted a lot of this, or did this come before?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, it was way before that, but that certainly pushed it over the edge for us because they're flat out killing us now, and they're not even hiding it. So we need a change across the board. The way the governments work, all of them without exception, honestly, they're a joke.
You don't have to convince me, but I'm already on board. But I want to know what you mean by a lot of these words and terms that you're using. We have here in America, shall not be infringed. Right, self-defense, firearms, that kind of stuff. And in here you got that among these are life and its unrestricted defense. Shall not be infringed. Unrestricted defense, kind of the same thing, is it? Explain what you mean.
Okay, yes. When the United States was founded, it was the first time that a nation was founded upon the principles of sovereignty, where the individual was in charge of themselves. So the United States was really the first to do that. And so with our writing of our Constitution, when you're asking about self-defense, we are taking the same stance that you have the right to defend your life by any means necessary. That in fact, in Canada, nobody's allowed to even have pepper spray. It's a joke. Like, Canada is an absolute joke. They think that the state's there to protect you, and you're not allowed to protect yourself. In fact, there's been many instances where people have defended their home, shot intruders, killed intruders with their own guns that they didn't themselves have, and been charged with murder. It's a disgrace on that front.
Well, in America, same kind of stuff was going on. They had a wave of things in the later 90s that was castle doctrine. It was like the king of your castle. If you're in your castle and somebody, you don't have a responsibility to retreat. That's kind of what they use in United Kingdom, I guess the Commonwealth. Canada gets thrown in there too, to where but you could have run away. Well, if they got you in a corner in the basement, tied down, and you're already wounded, I guess you can defend yourself then. That kind of crap. And the concept of this, you own yourself and you can defend your life, comes from where? How did you come around to this way of thinking? What happened in your childhood? What grandma put this in your head?
Well, to be honest, it's common sense. We come from God, and we're allowed to defend our life, period, because it's primal, right? Fight or flight. It's in us. And I don't believe anybody else has the right to tell you to do with your body anything. I don't care. As long as you are not doing harm to yourself, or not yourself, but I mean others and the environment, you should be allowed to do what you want. And that is freedom. And that's what we want to found a country based upon those principles. Because like the United States tried to build, they did create, I believe, the freest country in the world. You and I both know the Constitution's being ignored because because of Congress and the Senate, they're able to change the laws, and the Constitution's being ignored. So we're trying to write the rules that can never be changed. And our attitude is, if you don't like these rules, you don't have to live here. And if you are here, when we implement them, you can leave, go somewhere else.
Okay, where did this passion come from? When you wrote your book, tell me about the book. This is, they call it a long book. The Freedom Handbook. Okay, give us the origination of that and where the motivation came to present it.
Well, I've always, I guess you could say, hated authority or didn't like authority. Not that I don't disagree with a lot of things. I don't like being told to do something with no reason behind it, because I told you so. So as a kid, I didn't, I was just kind of that way. But if you want to live in a free world, in my opinion, you have to explain it to people. So which is why the book came about. So that you could actually, anybody from any spectrum on the political scale could read that book and understand where we're coming from. And it reasonably articulates everything we care about as we live together in a society, that this doesn't have to be a scary concept. And in fact, the premise of freedom would unleash human potential. You would live a better life. You would have more wealth. You'd be able to transfer it to your loved ones. You would live longer. And people really, really don't understand, because in the first paragraph of our book, nobody on earth knows what freedom is. Because you literally can't do anything without being told by someone that you can't do it. You can't even go to a park and have a beer.
Well, what is it that got you motivated? Thinking, all right, this is normally when I talk to someone in this position, it's always asking why a lot. Why did you do that? Why did you even care? Why was it that this bothered you? Why? And it comes down to, you brought up a parent, a coach, an employer, a teacher, an uncle, or something. So since you on this path to even care or to know the difference, you gotta go in the Wayback Machine, man. Help me out.
I understand where you're coming from, and this answer is probably going to be the first time you've ever heard this. I am an absolutist in free thinking, and I was born into a cult, a religious cult. It was my mom's religion. I believed it all the way up until my late teens, and it was in my early 20s when I unwinded my own mind from it, not influenced by anyone, my own thinking, my own research. And when you're able to free your mind from an indoctrinated cult, you then you're free to think anything. So you'd be surprised. I get my information from all sources, and I form my own opinions. For this last pandemic, not for 1 second did I believe that there was a COVID-19 virus. I believe that was just a made-up word. They used the normal flu as a guise. And the real pandemic was when the vaccine came out. And so I'm a free thinker. And, when you free your mind from something you believed as a child and did it on your own, no, I really believe nobody can fool you anymore. And I don't want to live in a world where other people tell us how to live and what to do. And most of those people are complete morons and idiots. And I'm going to preface it with this. The highest level of stupidity, I'm going to tell you there's a level of stupidity just below the highest. That's if you cause harm to others for your own benefit. Now, we can all understand that, the criminal, the mob, someone doing harm to others to benefit themselves. We can understand that.
The bureaucrat.
Right? It's human nature. But the highest level of stupidity, now this transcends education, IQ, it doesn't matter. If your ideas hurt others and yourself, that is the highest level of stupidity there is. And every single human being who believes in climate change or the World Economic Forum, they are in a basket of stupidity because their ideas are harming themselves as well as others. So, you got to use your brain and your mind, or you're going to be at the mercy of idiots.
This is a commonly, increasingly held belief, and your solution is what? Because as I look through your material, it's a focused, concentrated effort on the promotion of whatever it is that you perceive to be the solution answer. Okay, here's your opportunity. Lay it on us, man. Hey, can you do you want to turn on your video at all? People see you or no, or doesn't matter?
I can if you want.
Yeah, well, I mean, we can see you if you want. I mean, we have the technology.
There you go.
You're kind of a little close, but
I'm talking to you on my phone.
Okay. Well, I just just people see what's up and say hello. I just do it. There he is. All right, he's pretty. All right. So go ahead. You're talking to the audience. Give us your solution. You would think everybody should what?
Okay, so I'll give you the hard facts. What we're saying is that there would be a 3% tax when you buy something, and that's all the state has to use, and it has to be through transparency. The public
and it can't
official,
be 3.1
no,
or 4.2. It's 3.
Never.
You get 3 because I said 3.
Yeah, that's right.
3.
So
it's got to be at least less than God only wants 10, and they want 70. I mean, so I'm like, all right. So 3. State gets 3. All right, go ahead.
Yes. So the state has 3, and you actually, because wherever you live, whatever county you live, whatever city you live, you always hear about budgets. So, the budget for the road, the budget for this, but you don't know what it really, really costs. And so in our world, we're not going to have city employees for anything. It's all subcontracted out for the road maintenance or whatever. And it's going to be paid for by the 3%. And you can see what the subcontractors are, how much it costs, and if there's any surplus, we get a check back. So you're going to actually, for once, have a government that's accountable because they can't spend the money without talking to us. And it's only used for road maintenance and in defense of the country. I believe you have to have a military in this day and age, right?
Roads? Where we're going, there aren't any roads. I'm a flying car guy, man. I'm just screw that road thing, But I understand your point. I'm just, I can nitpick all I wanted about, who's in charge of that budget and which guy subcontractor gets under what committee of the blah 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 blah. I mean, you can go on and on and on. The point that you're trying to do is have a transparent government that it comes from us, and so we get to have a say. Damn it, kind of thing. But I can't think of any kind of government that you create that doesn't become a thing. I mean, it's always a thing. And I really want to get down to the fundamentals of the solution of the concept behind what you're advocating. Is there the majority rules? You have a vote and we secede and you don't like it, you're with the minority, get out? Or is it you want to fix the government in some way? but there's going to be a government. I'm wanting to understand. I always have three questions. There's intentional communities, which is kind of what you're building. You want to have an intentional country kind of deal on new principles. So I always ask these three questions. They're real simple. One, what is it I have to do? What am I required to do? Two, what am I prevented from doing? Oh, you can't do that. Well, I was kind of wanting to do that. And three, what's your conflict resolution? So there's going to be some kind of, courthouse rock, that we're banging gavels on or something. I mean, there's going to be something. These guys with the guns are going to make you abide by something. So it's, what do I have to do? What can't I do? And what's your conflict resolution? Let's start with that. If I join your thing, I have to give up 3%. That's the deal. You sign here 3% of what? My assets, 3% of my transaction, 3% of what?
When you buy things. So when you fill up your car.
Fee.
Yeah.
Okay.
Transaction, you buy a new car, not a used car, a new car, you buy a new property. There's no property tax, there's no payroll tax, there's no income tax, there's no investment, there's no capital gains tax. The state only has 3%, and it's transparent where it goes and how it's spent. Who picks the contracts isn't the person. We call them administrators now. Now, that the administrator can't even pick the subcontractor. That goes out for vote for you and I to decide who gets the contracts. So the administrator has no pensions. There are no pensions, and they get a $60,000 a year salary. That in and of itself will attract people who actually want to serve and care, not to line their own pockets. So that's to keep the corruption out. When you ask about conflict resolution, the answer is actually extremely simple. Every lawyer on earth knows what common law is. And if you've ever been to small claims court, that is common law. That the rules are different. It's vastly different than when you go into, I don't know what it's called in the U.S., but here it's called King's Bench now. And it's just, it's nonsense. So common law, and the bottom line is this: only a man or a woman can charge another man or a woman, and you are liable for that charge. If you are falsely accusing someone, you are liable for the same penalty that person you were accusing could be liable for. Because, and that applies to the judges and that applies to the police. They will be given latitude because of the bad conditions. As an example, with the police, they deal with horrific things, so they should be given the benefit of the doubt in a wide berth, but they will not be immune from abuse. Because if you indemnify a human, as in the United States, as federal agents can't be prosecuted. I've seen a federal agent try to kill a guy on film, and the judge threw it out because you can't charge a federal agent. That's insane. We're accountable. You're accountable. If you go have a few drinks, drive down
sovereign
the road,
immunity. Yep. No, the king's man gets his attack on the king's man is an attack on the king, and the king gets to do what he wants. So I get it. This attitude has this desire, this much effort that's gone into this. I just want to understand why something happened. Something is, you're motivated to offer a solution of not this with the confidence that it has some validity and that it may progress into something. Into what? What are you hoping to accomplish, and why? I still haven't got to understand why you raised your black banner. It's time to start slitting throats or something. I mean, I'm just, what was it that motivated you to take this path?
Well, I had a bunch of things. Every time you get a traffic ticket, when you're doing no harm, every time you touched by the government, the tax collection agency, like, your IRS carry guns, our tax collectors, they seize your assets. They're always sending letters. It's just I hate it. And how are you going to leave something to your children? Like, I have 2 grown children. I want to leave them something, but the way the laws are, you get taxed on the property you leave them. They get taxed on the cash you leave them. How are you supposed to better your life when they take 60% of your wage? I mean, you add up what they take off your paycheck, and then you add up what you pay when you go fill up, and you add up what you pay when you, with all the taxes, and then inflation. You're suffering from it too, but it's worse here in Canada. We have millions of people who've never used a food bank who are using it now. So everywhere you look, it's getting worse and worse. And then, as you mentioned, this last pandemic, fake, whatever this rollout of the vax has literally killed millions and injured millions more. There's people who are getting amputations. They're having strokes, heart attacks. It's off the rails. How long are we going to let people do this to us? And you don't even know.
I understand, but I mean, it's not like we haven't, we feel you, man. But the let's go ahead and go through your site. I want to give you an opportunity to offer yourself as a solution. And it's Canada. I mean, Canada, I don't know if they need more solutions or we do. I mean, it's a worldwide thing. I remember during the Revolution, there was a young man, he goes, "You want one world government? Fine, I'll give you one world revolution." And I'm going, wow, what a concept and then I start to see it worldwide. Truckers in Canada or tractors in Poland. I mean, it is happening worldwide. You get Javier Milei gets elected as Captain ANCAP, goes to the World Economic Forum and says, "You guys all suck. You're the problem." So for that to happen, there's a sea change coming, and there's an opportunity for you to ride the wave a little bit. But let's talk about your site and what you're trying to accomplish. Sign-ups, party membership, a revolution, secession, legal action. Where is this building? If I go in and I go, woohoo, I'm going to freedomisaparty.com. Freedomisaparty.com. I'm gonna give you my email because we're gonna get together and do what? I mean, what's going on?
Well, I'm hoping that all the independent parties would see that our solutions are the only solutions, because nobody else is talking about fundamental change. If you look at our system, there's no saving Canada. So we're hoping that if you agree with what we're saying, that there's only going to be a 3% tax, there's no property tax, there's no payroll tax, you get to do what you want on your property, and there's no government agents to come and inspect your home that you're building. You build what you want. There's building codes, and I suggest you would follow them. But if you don't want to, it's your home. Do what you want.
Government's not friendly advice. We advise, we give you advice. No, here's a gun. It's not advice, kind of thing. So I'm with you, brother, on that. We just purchased property. We just went and had it surveyed yesterday. We were talking about it, in the first hour of the show, and I knew it kind of segue into this. We have a thing called occupytheland.org. Occupy the Land. We're just starting it. We're going through this process of a lifetime of activism. I know what the main base structure of government has become. It's just it's a revenue thing. It's to make money for those that won't leave us alone. It's to have more control over other people. It's been an attraction to the sociopaths, the psychopaths, the ones that have no empathy. They don't care. They're looking out for themselves, and they're willing to strip you of your rights and your goodies and your property in order to fund their whatever the heck in the name of whatever the heck they come up with. So I understand. We are of like mind. But I don't want to trade one tyranny for another. And what's the foundation of that? This 3% tax, how is it collected? Is it by force with CBDCs, with surveillance, another taxing branch of whatever the heck? Is it every transaction goes to the, I mean, a transactional tax, the man gets a cut every time a dollar exchanges. It's its own kind of tyranny. So what is the fundamental base of what you're trying to get to? Good government? No government? Self-government? Decentralized government? You see my point? I'm like, I'm trying to see, if I join your thing, I'm like, let's go, man. North American, whip butt. Let's get the Levolution joins. Let's go kick some. I want to know what it is I'm joining. What's the philosophy? Well, it's a 3%. So I address that for me.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. When the rules are what the rules are and what we're saying, right? The other people, when you're voting for somebody, you don't know what the contracts are, who you owe money to. You can't call yourself a country when you don't own your bank. The United States, it may as well be McDonald's printing your money. You don't control it. You have no say over it. The IRS is at the behest of that private company. So you say about when you collect the 3%, it's simply done the way it is done now. It's a sales tax. It's submitted to the government. Every business does it now. So the system's already in place. And then when you say, well, is there going to be tyranny? Listen, having your wage taken away from you, your house taken from you, if you don't pay your property tax, having taken from you, you already are living in tyranny. And then they could say you can't open your business, you can't go to work, you have to wear a mask, and you're going to go to your doctor who's going to tell you to take a jab. We are living in absolute hell. This is insanity. So what we're proposing is we're not going to have a foreign dictator, the king, on our money, as in the case of Canada. It's pathetic. Yeah. We don't own our bank. The Bank of Canada was given away with the last premier under the name of Trudeau. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, our current prime minister, who's a joke. His stepdad's the one that took our bank away. We were debt-free before that. The United States Constitution says you can only use gold or silver. You cannot borrow money and you cannot carry a deficit. So they fucked that. You are saddled with a debt you did not create or agree to. Your stupid government just gave billions away to Ukraine, trying to give away billions more to other countries. God knows, to Israel. I mean, the amount of money you hemorrhage out of your country. Same with Canada. I mean, you want to keep living this way? Trust me, anything we're proposing is not tyranny because there's no property tax. You own your property. You only have to give up 3% when you buy. The world's your oyster. And there's a court system that operates under common law. This isn't scary. You know what's scary? The world we live in right now, where people who live abroad, who have ideas that they've written down to wipe out the population. And we're saying you...
No, I apologize. This is... expression of how it is. You represent a lot of people that are thinking this way. We've been doing this since the 80s. You know, my wife and I and our family, since I was like 30, 28, 30, we got involved. And every scratch of the surface, freedom good, government bad, 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 because the delegated authority attracts the worst. You know, it's like a moth to the flame. The power, the opportunity for control, the expression of their lawn Nazism. I mean, you know, whatever the heck that they're doing, it attracts those kinds of people. So I'm fearful of any structure, any government, any power to whatever percent. That is the problem, in my opinion. The thing is, though, is that every jurisdiction, every group, I defend this border, I got this here gun, can do whatever the heck they want because they can. You know, peace out. Now, you're looking at Alberta. Now, are you kind of focused on the jurisdiction of Alberta? Let's get Alberta. Screw Quebec. When Quebec goes, we need to secede from the Union. I'm like, go. Peace, man. You think we want to stop you? You got the East Coast sucking off the resources Alberta anyway. You know, you guys be fine. You just left alone. So you're trying to free Canada from the Commonwealth, get the king off the money, or just Alberta, or just people, or wherever they are? How are you wanting to structure this? What is your vision of success?
Okay, this is a good question. No, we can't save Canada. Canada's not a country. Canada's 10 provinces that trade with the United States more than they trade with each other. And like I said, we have a foreign king on our money. We don't own our bank. Our tax collectors collect money for the IMF. So you can't call yourself a country. So Alberta is the most resource rich plot of land on earth. And that's an advantage. We have farming. We're kind of like Texas in that aspect. Now, we're landlocked, but I got solutions for that. But we will trade with the rest of the world. And we have to leave Canada. We have to create our own country because Canada is a sinking ship and nobody's even thinking about trying to save it. And so that's what I'm talking about. Move to Alberta. vote for our party until we outvote everybody, and that might take some time, or you ride this thing till it collapses, and then people say, hey, maybe we want to try our way. One of the two's got to happen, because this is going to collapse. The United States is going to collapse. Canada is already on the verge of collapse, and we're the highest tax-debted G7 nation in the world, Canada. So it's not going to make it.
I'm glad you guys started to figure that out. We knew. America's
right.
looking at going, what the crap, man?
And you have people leaving one state for another. I mean, you know how many people are leaving California to go to Florida, and you know how many people are leaving to go to Texas because the rules are better for them, right? But you're all hitched to the federal government that is doing whatever it wants. And, you know, the founding fathers wanted your senators to pay a per diem when they were there. They weren't supposed to get wages, salaries. They knew that would be insidious if you allowed it to happen. And here we are. Those people don't care about you. They can't care about you.
No, the system is, well, see, that's my point, is any system, I want to make this point. You'll understand my perspective. Whenever you create a organization around a cause or a movement, sooner or later, the organization becomes more important than the reason you created it. Every time. And I want to make sure that I understand your frustration and your justification for whatever this is, it ain't working, okay? I vote not this. We can do this a lot better. I'm John Q. Public of, the guy of whatever. We can make this better. We can do something better. So I'm with you on that. But the thing is that I wanted to make sure that we're not jumping from the frying pan into the fire here. That's all right. You don't have to do your thing. We got to see your pretty face. We're good. But no, there you got it. Okay, that's good. Thank you. But I wanted to make sure that you understand I'm not an advocate for being governed better. I don't want to be governed. There are those that just want to be left alone, and there are those that just won't leave them alone. Because when I first started doing radio in 2003, I remember, they, you conspiracists, who are they? Oh, good question. Who are they? There are those that just want to be left alone, and the other ones that won't leave them alone, that's they, them, those, T3, okay? They, them, those. Well, you don't want to turn into they, them, those. You want to, provide the only that's why Declaration of Independence is such a spark for me, and why we call the show Declare Your Independence, is because it actually said it. The purpose of government is defense of individual rights. If it doesn't do that, it's time to alter or abolish it. It's your right. It's your duty. And I'm going, well, shoot, sign me up. I'm hip to that. So I'm not looking to create a newer, better, improved I rule you. And we're going to do it a little bit better, because there's little holes you could drive a truck through, of how they're going to twist it into something and delegate. That's why Jefferson was going on about watering the withered tree of liberty, with the blood of patriots and tyrants, on a regular 20-year basis kind of thing. So you can see it coming. It's a generational thing. And I think the time for Canada is now to do something. They are really, but the oppression from Trudeau and they, them, those is, oh my goodness. When is he up for election again?
Well, that's 2025. So next year.
So do you think that he'll prevail? Is there opposition? Are they just going to steal it? Does it matter? Alberta's just had enough. We're done. And what kind of support of your fellow Canadians in Alberta are for this kind of drastic change?
Well, I'm sure there's freedom-loving people, but Chris is here. I'm going to introduce him here in a second. But to answer your question first about what we're proposing becoming tyranny and getting out of control, remember, the state can only take 3%, and that's carved in stone, and it can never be changed. So how much tyranny could they do to you? So that should give you some relief. At your next question about this upcoming election, what people don't understand in our parliamentary system that we have, the current government isn't a majority government. He shouldn't even have any power to do anything, but the NDP party joined with the Liberals and created a coalition, which is insidious. It shouldn't be allowed, but this is the stupid system we have. So we don't even have a real prime minister. He's hijacked the system by promising God knows what to this other party, and they're in cahoots.
What makes you think the Republicans and Democrats here are any different? The government always combines for more government to be governmenty. I mean, of course it's going to happen because they can. They, them, those.
There you go. There you go. And this is what we're proposing to try to change it. I'm going to introduce you to Chris because he's got different perspectives or different ways of looking at these. So here's Chris.
Hey, Ernie.
Good morning, Chris. This is you missed some of the good. But let's go ahead and we'll start it up again, and I get to ask you the questions without Luke prompting you. He already knows the question and the answer, so you get to start fresh. Whenever you create something like this, there's two things. One, whenever you create a an organization or something like you're doing, sooner or later the organization becomes more important than the reason that you created it. Is the organization important or what you were trying to do and how best to do that? And I always have, if there's going to be an effort, a centralized, a common, a proposal, certainly I have three questions. One, what do I got to do? Well, you got to give us your email. You got to, this, you got to vote this way. You got to show up for the whatever. You got something, okay, well, I got to do. What can't I do? Well, you can't, speak disparagingly on, and you can't, pick your nose in public, and you can't, whatever the heck it is. Okay. Well, I kind of want to do that. So whatever. So then the third question is, what's your conflict resolution? How are you going to settle disputes amongst yourselves, amongst other entities, where your tax dollars go, kind of, whatever. So what do I have to do? What can't I do? What's your conflict resolution? Start with that for me of what you guys are proposing. Okay, could you hear me?
Well, I think yes, as I heard Luke come in, as I came in and I heard Luke talking about, voting with your feet and moving to Alberta. I think that's what you got to do. Number one, I think, you look at those apocalyptic movies that are, one out of every three these days. And whether it's a Mad Max world, hopefully we don't get there first. There's always good places to be and bad places to be, a safe place. Yeah. Somewhere over the rainbow that they're trying to provide some peace for people. I think we have to decide for ourselves. These movements are already going on. It's natural. It's kind of like the organic food movement being the first. When the boot of tyranny starts to get furious again in a cyclical sense, people push back. Food is pretty important. You can't starve to death. And I think the next thing we do is we group together. And whether it's, Owen Benjamin over there in the Ozarks, the Free State Project in New Hampshire, there's lots of places on the planet, Alberta here in Canada, certainly, and lots of places in North America specifically. Even in Latin America, there seems to be little pockets of libertarian ideas here and there gathering, as we do in community. People have been moving out of the city, doing all those sorts of things. So I think we need to get serious about the fact that, look, the enemy is very sophisticated and it's a global effort now. Pretty scary stuff, in a way that's very, very sophisticated. So I think we have to push back with some added level of organization as well. So I think that there's a number of people around North America who would agree in principle. Lots of people who could agree on some very easy, basic tenets, much like you were talking about with the Declaration of Independence. Incidentally, on that note, there is a revised Declaration of Independence on our website that I think you might be interested in, Ernie.
I've been looking at it. I got it here in front of me. You want me to read some?
Okay. Well, either way, that's what. No, I just wondered because you seemed passionate about that a minute ago when you guys were talking about it, and I just wondered if you had any reaction to our take, because we used the American Declaration of Independence. The first thing that came
to mind on this when I did this, I was looking at it, and it came up, and it goes, we declare these truths to be self-evident, that all men and women are created equal, that they are endowed by God, our Creator, with inalienable rights, that among these are life and its unrestricted defense. And I'm going, well, shall not be infringed, unrestricted defense. They have two ways of saying the same thing.
Yes.
But it didn't mention firearms, and or arms or something. I mean, unrestricted defense. Well, I'm Marvin the Martian, and I got the nuclear button or something. I mean, it's kind of, so I understand the sentiment, but that is not necessarily the sentiment of Canadians. What do you think? Is it gotten more and more firearm friendly, being able to defend yourself? Australia got disarmed, and look what happened there. They probably didn't fare that well. Canada is kind of going down the same road. What do you think the idea of self-defense for yourself and to defend your community against tyranny using firearms? What's that attitude in Alberta?
Well, I mean, in Alberta, or with respect to Luke and I think it's not too far off, or not too dissimilar. I think there should be no restriction at all. Never mind a firearm on anything. If the government can buy it, create it, then we should be able to purchase it. Maybe something nuclear might be a viable exception to that, but right down to planes. Or any type of large caliber weaponry. There's no restriction at all on the weaponry that you should be able to procure in order to defend yourselves, and likewise the community. I think that the sentiments here in Alberta are very similar to the sentiments across the U.S. I think we have more guns here than we have people, which is very similar to you. I think that most people here like their guns, and certainly there are a number of Canadians who think that's crazy, but there's also a lot of Americans who say guns are dumb. Right. Which, again, it's just a silly attitude to have. And if they don't want to have protection for their family, then they can move somewhere else. But I think most Albertans would agree with that. I think most Canadians would agree that guns are necessary to protect yourself from evil people. And I don't think that the government should restrict our ability. In fact, when we talked about defense, we looked at some of those situations where, countries encourage their citizenry not only to carry guns, but get trained as part of a national militia and defense force. And, in the same way, if somebody wanted to become a pilot, pass the testing. We should have no restrictions on that. We should be able to train as a nation to defend ourselves against enemies, foreign and domestic, right across the board. And have
this
the weaponry
attitude that you guys have
you can't
documented,
defend against tyranny without weaponry, period.
Yeah, we got a time delay, so it makes it difficult. I apologize. But there, the idea that Canadians have come to this North American, what was always kind of identified with the United States, of being this pioneer attitude towards individuals being able to do what they want without the abuse of the man, the proper role of government, the ability to be left alone, to live your life, you own your life. The philosophy of liberty is self-ownership, that you have the freedom, the liberty to use your hands in the fashioning of raw materials and what then becomes your property, and that the government's role is to protect those endeavors and to get out of the way of not prescribing how you would exercise your freedom, that you're in a state of liberty to exercise your freedom. That is spawned in you guys from where? We talked to Luke about this a little bit, but I wanted to get your take on where this desire comes from. Was it a movie you saw, a grandparent, a teacher, a coach, something that exposed you to these ideas that you have this kind of passion to actually put it into fruition? You see, there's a motivation. I want to know why you're doing this. What happened that you were this way, and then what sparked you setting aside other endeavors to do this? What happened?
Sure. Well, I think, Luke would have to speak for himself. Everybody would have to answer that question a bit differently.
I already
For me,
did. You missed it.
The education system, when I was very young, the world is made for the average. Yeah. So that was the one for me. I mean, all my life, I've understood in a lot of ways before I was even an adult that the institutions that are set up around me to help are actually exacerbating the problem. I don't know if I understood immediately that that was by design, but I did understand that the world wasn't to be trusted, at face value, very, very young. And as an early, as a young man coming into adulthood, I think that it just became more and more evident. It was actually Art Bell on the radio that changed everything for me, I think, in some ways. Like if I had to pick a turning point, I would say at 18 years old, starting to listen to Art Bell. And from Mitch Yukaku on down the line, listening to all the people that the government didn't want you to hear from a scientist to a doctor here, or this and that, talking about health. It didn't matter. Anthropology, every subject under the sun, I started to understand that if I wanted to know the truth of the world, it wasn't what I was being told, on the surface. I needed to go digging for it. And I began devoting my life to that process as a young man.
So this is, let's go ahead and delve into it a little bit. You're specifically asking for people to move to Alberta, join the fight against the tyrannical, whatever. And there's plenty of land and plenty of opportunity and plenty of resources and especially if you can just get the man off your butt. And Alberta can be free, and we're gonna, mountain man it and kind of whatever. And I'm like, I'm in the desert, man. It's like warm here. Maybe not. We'll do that here, but I'm definitely in support of, go get some. So what is it you're specifically asking people to do? Is it a GoFundMe? Is it, take it on as their cause in their area to join, to give sympathy, money, move? What is the organization? Because like the Free State Project had, like an infrastructure. You move and they show up and, get you moved in, get you a job, man. They're on it. What kind of is it the beginning stages? Was the book the first part of it? Was that the beginning of this as a manual for something? We had Boston Tea Party did Molon Labe, which was a book about the very thing, but in Wyoming. Then you got the Free State stuff, and so there's a lot. You got an Acapulco down in Mexico. I mean, there's so many of these things that are already started, and I'm wondering what you're looking as a success metric for you. What do you want?
Well, the book was our first effort, but I think back at that stage, it's 2017, and I always joke it's like 10 years. It feels like 10 years ago already, at least. And there's a lot that I've already changed my mind on. Hopefully other people are changing their mind regularly too when presented with new evidence. But, the book was designed to wake people up to the truth of what's going on, and did offer some general solutions in terms of passing, spreading the message and so on. And gathering together. Look at LEAP, the Organization of Police Officers Against the Prohibition of Drugs. I mean, no matter what it is, we don't get anything done unless we group together. So that was, step one. And in terms of right now, what we're suggesting that people do and where we're at that way, yes, there's nothing that gets done without people voting in every way that they can, which is their feet, their hands, their wallets, their mouths, everything they've got. So if people are in the UK and they like these ideas, they can support them in all the natural ways from over there. Number two is, I don't know if we're suggesting that, we are the solution for the entire planet here in Alberta. What we're suggesting is Alberta is one of the best places on the planet. Certainly for us Canadians here, might be the only place, I'm not sure. And I think what we need to do as a freedom movement globally is identify specifically a few places, Alberta probably being one of them, and start voting with everything we've got now. That's the message, yes. I mean, there are a lot of people moving out of the cities and moving into various little pockets here and there. I think we need to be a little bit more organized in those efforts. Otherwise, like Sun Tzu says, it'll be easy for them to hammer down those nails. If we work together and build up large pockets of people, I like what you're bringing up, Jeff Burbick down there in Acapulco, we could have half a dozen, 3, who knows how many we could work together on the diplomatic side and the pragmatic defensive side. As well as every other piece of that equation.
Let me ask you, just together,
otherwise we're not going to accomplish anything. I think there's more than enough.
I apologize. I wanted to get into logistics.
Go ahead.
The actual, you have Alberta go into the city, or do you have more of a rural idea, more of this canyon be populated by those that don't comply? I mean, because Alberta has such a wilderness and such a high resource capability that I'm wondering, how remote is it and how decentralized are you looking for people to congregate, not congregate, spread out over the land, move to Vancouver? I mean, what are you advocating?
Well, look at, you got a 1.5 million is the total number of immigrants I think Canada has proposed bringing in over the next year. In the time that I've been here in Alberta, it's nearly doubled in population. I think we're now just under 4 million people. I think it didn't really matter. It doesn't matter where they reside, although, typically I think we want to sort of match the population mapping that you would currently experience here in Alberta, whereby you've got most of the people coming in to live in the cities, just out of the cities. Of course, it wouldn't even take quite a doubling of the population before we could vote in, of course, our secede and take over this land, period. And so I don't know, quite frankly, they're telling people, as you know, around the Western world to start accepting immigrants into their houses. I think the logistics of it, I was in a logistics business. I know these things need to be factored in. The reality is we're being invaded over our borders right now by people who want to kill us and our culture. And I think if we have people moving in a serious way with their feet in their hands and supporting it, they can come anywhere here in Alberta, be living in the basements, on the property, in camper vans, everywhere. Ultimately there'll be pushback, but it doesn't matter. If people screaming across the border, business is booming. There's opportunity everywhere. There's lots of work here in Alberta versus anywhere else. That's number one. And number two, who are we talking to? We're talking to freedom fighters who aren't sucking off government teats, who are builders, doers, makers. So everybody coming here is bringing their own enterprise, their own solutions. And I believe that you really just over probably about a 2 to 4 year period, we could have an influx of numbers such that we could take back over control of this piece of land from quote unquote the powers that be.
Okay, so let me go ahead and
ask you. I don't know if a
this
decentralized long view, or I'm not sure if I quite understand that question.
Okay, let me go ahead and phrase it this way. We'll get into your platform here. You guys can define a lot of this. Is that a lot of times it is a social movement. A lot of times it is something like you can have what you're doing is encouragement to live a certain way, to vote a certain way, not vote, to have a parallel society economically, use the use of precious metals and crypto, be more barter, join a community that, if it's over the horizon, it's not much of your community.
Right.
You're governing yourself kind of thing. So I'm trying to get to what you're advocating here is a political solution. It is voting. It is voting with your feet, having masses of people that will vote to secede, that will express their will. It's going to take more than a vote, for some commonwealth of the crown to say, oh, okay, well, as long as you explained it to us, But how much of an effort politically is this? This is a, come and help us defend our homes, our places with a vote, with a presence, with a, or, as it always any kind of radical change like this comes with a definite no, I'm not doing it, or yes, I am, and this says this here gun and my force of will. So is your will going to overwhelm the will of the present government? Then you're talking secession, that's sedition, that's treason, that's you're not loyal to the crown, or how far, in what way are you going to take this? I understand you do your book, you express your ideas, you do your web page, you have all that. What do I got to do? Take up arms? What do I got to do? What can I do? What's your conflict resolution? And what it seems that you're asking to do, one, everybody should be free, and freaking Alberta, we're definitely wanting to do it. We're in. Let's make it happen. Voting, there's a lot of ways to vote, and I'm just wondering, the solution that you're offering is a force of numbers of people come here and help us will out by force of desire in whatever form, get this monkey off our back because we're just pissed, and we can do this better. You see, I'm trying to get what's the mechanism that you're hoping to use to get to this.
Yes. I think you're hitting it, and it takes a few seconds to kind of figure it out. Even amongst Luke and I was telling Luke this stuff for a long time before at one point it clicked, and he goes, "You're right. All we need to do is have the message, like you say. You get your website, whatever the message is. It's new borders, new possibilities. You want a hashtag message? There it is. New borders, new possibilities. It's ritual, it's uncharted, and it's the only story ever told in human history. Okay, it's being told again, and it has nothing to do with Chris and Luke. What it has to do with are the principles that we can all agree on, which are this has gotten out of hand. Number one. Number two is, what do we want the future to look like? And it's very similar to your original Declaration of Independence, and I think some really core principles that everybody in the freedom movement would agree on. So right back to the core point, everyone around North America is pissed. Everyone who gives a poop about it, everybody who's feeling bent out of shape about it, it's time that we stood up together. We're saying to everybody in North America, even our friends like Jeff Berwick, as you mentioned, down there in Acapulco, it doesn't matter where you are on this green earth. If you believe in freedom, you can see that the tyranny is getting more and more sophisticated, and it's global, and it's about to get off the chain. And so what we need to do is we need to get together. Otherwise, strength is in numbers. Yes, we can do anything we need to do if we start to gather in numbers. We generally, I think, only represent 10, 20, 30% of the population maximum. But if we took 10% of the population from everywhere and gathered in one spot, that's our new house. It's called New Borders, New Possibilities. This is our house. Get out if you don't like it. And we're prepared to defend it.
Okay, what jurisdiction? Alberta, or the corner community of, this mountain range bordered by this river and to this fort tree line, it's ours, so saith us, and this here gun. I'm wondering what you're looking for. You're going to use traditional borders and boundaries in a jurisdiction if we voted to secede, or you're going to secede as a community out in the hinterland of we started it in this wide spot in the forest of bite me and none shall pass. I'm help me out there.
Okay. Well, I don't think, no. So unlike,
can you bring your phone down a little bit? I get the top of your forehead.
There's no, specific portion of Alberta.
Yeah, there we go. We're talking to your forehead.
So yeah, I don't think we're looking at a specific pocket of Alberta. What we want to do is take advantage of all of Alberta, and I think at the same time recognize that no, we are not restricted by these old borders and so on. So, the reality is that you're going to have people probably just across the border in Saskatchewan, and maybe some people in the BC. And like Luke was saying, when push comes to shove, and we've got enough of us here, when there's 4 million plus, 3 million plus, 5 million plus freedom fighters standing here in Alberta, spread out in a very similar way to the population that we see right now, I think it's easy for us to, whether it's buy land, seize land, like you say, secede. Those are your three obvious solutions. You know, like you say, maybe there's a pocket of BC that we end up wanting, seizing, taking to alleviate that landlocked situation. There's a number of possibilities. I don't know if, you know, Luke and I have a specific idea that, you know, is Luke or Chris's that needs to be adhered to. One of the most important aspects of this is, again, you know, Chris and Luke are just two guys. I don't think we can come up with solutions as two gentlemen. They're going to work well for a whole new country full of 5 or 10 million people in every way, shape, and form. What we need is to start working together. And so whether it's the fine-tuning nuance of the Declaration of Independence that we were discussing, you know, the inalienable human rights, the Constitution itself, the 3 founding documents that we need to come up with and finish, or like you're suggesting, some of the nuance and logistics. Where is there a specific valley we're going to like better than another? I don't think so. But I think that, you know, population mapping right now is going to offer us the best solution to bring more people into the same places. We already have the houses. We can make some extra room. You know, there's 5 acres over here that my friend has. You can put a couple things up on there, and so on down the line. I don't think we need to reinvent the wheel or isolate ourselves in some sort of weird, you know, natural pocket somewhere. No, I think we need to take over Alberta as it stands by its natural borders roughly right now, although I'll make room for a whole lot of compromise and opportunity as we say that, because you never really do know what's going to happen, and Chris and Luke don't have all the solutions. What we know is that once enough freedom-minded people are working together, nothing can stop us.
This is what I want to do, because we have a time delay here that's annoying. But what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to read one of the paragraphs that you have in your declaration here that give us an idea of the mindset that you guys have and what might be done or should be done or can be done, and if we're going to be effective. Let me do this. We declare tyranny's tenets of control, weakening, and division to be at a uniquely fevered pitch. Tyranny itself uniting its hold across the earth to conjoin all nations into shared terms of a global slavery and presenting correspondingly unique threat to all individual nations and peoples, most certainly here at home in our once great Americas. We must therefore acquiesce in the necessity. That was my favorite part at the end of the Declaration. There was a reading of the Declaration of Independence by a bunch of celebrities in Independence Hall one time, and they had, you know, Danny Glover did this, and what's her name did that, what's his name, and at the end, they acquiesced in the necessity. Who read that? Mel Gibson. You know, the Patriot, Braveheart, and I go, oh, who's going to read that part? Mel Gibson. I go, ooh, that's good. Okay, so we must therefore acquiesce in the necessity which announces our separation and hold tyranny and all nations or peoples that attack our right to our own land, home, peace, and freedom, as we hold the rest of mankind forever friends in peace and enemies in war. The fact that we took, and when Arab Spring was happening in the Middle East, Tahrir Square in Cairo, when it was in an uproar, they're going to have, you know, Pharaoh number 300 is going to be in charge of them. And I'm like, you're doing it again? It's just reforming of a nut now. So we had translated into Arabic on DVDs, thousands of them that we had passed out there. We shipped them to Alexandria. They went to Tahrir Square and dispersed them the philosophy of liberty, that, you know, stick animation thing. The philosophy of liberty was translated into Arabic, and it's exploded. It's because the Declaration of Independence, which we also had in books, Cato had a Declaration of Independence, Constitution, and Bill of Rights that was in English and Arabic, you know, page by page. And on the Constitution page, we had a little mailing sticker that said, oh, we already tried this, maybe you can do better. Because I'm not a big, giant fan of the collectivization of the Constitution. Well, we had the Declaration of Independence and the Bill of Rights. They rock. But all this about we're gonna do this and balance and checks and powers of, well, we rule you, and when you combine the legislative, executive, and judicial against the rights of the individual, you find yourself in a free speech zone. That's what happens. Disarmed. I mean, like, really? This is so we've been through this before, of the power of these words, the power of the Declaration of Independence, and the mindset it was. It didn't say what kind of government or that you even have a government, but when you men create one, it is there for a purpose. Why did you do it? You did it to protect the rights of the individuals. If it's not doing that, then what the hell is it there for? Why even have it? What's the point? So I'm glad that you use the sentiments in the Declaration to espouse your frustration with what's going on now. And you think, we can, reconstitute a new government in our own interest. I mean, even the Declaration says that. It goes, look, you do a new one that's going to be better. It didn't work, do it again. So I understand that.
That's right.
But you're looking at a political thing, or is it a military thing? It's going to come down to the barrel of a gun thing. I guarantee that. Because those are not going to give up and quietly and go into the good night. It's going to take an overwhelming force of general public opinion, which they have been doing everything they can to get Canada all revolutionaryized, because they're just being stupid. I mean, I'm with Luke on that one. They're just stupid. Stupid is stupid. Stupid is as stupid does, and they're doesn't. So this is I understand it, but what your success you're looking for is support to come to Alberta. We're the freedom-oriented, freedom-minded, and over the years, we've had libertarian writers. We had a thing that it's called the Western Libertarian Alliance, and it was based on a short story that involved Western Canada, the Rocky Mountain states, and northern Mexico aligned into a freedom-oriented alliance to keep our resources, and everybody sucking off of us can suck it, okay? That concept. So it doesn't have a border thing with country. It's an attitude. It's a mindset. It's the people's willingness to defend what they want in whatever way. And I think that it's going to have to involve an parallel economy, crypto, barter, trade, precious metals, something that at the fundamental level, that is where it starts. It's just, we're not trying to change it or fix it. We just don't care. We're ignoring you. We're doing it anyway. We just do it. We got to change the parliament, and the head guy in charge of vote the right don't care. You're still voting? I don't freaking care. So occupy the land is the biggest vote. Occupy the land. I am here. I am creating my own food. I'm educating my own kids. I'm not putting the poisons into my body and my land. And if you're trying to make me, I shall defend against thee. So this is, I want to include you in, on kind of the same stuff that we're doing, because I think you have the right mindset and do it. Freaking got off the couch and doing something. Wrote books, created web page, rock and roll and whatnot. What is the physical support for this kind of attitude in Alberta? How are the people? You have town hall meetings, you got meetups, you're going to conventions, you're doing kind of, come together on, farce book or something. How is it that how long have you started this, and what's your progression so far? Then I want to go over your platform and some of these things, and we'll end it on that. But go ahead and comment on what I just said.
I'm going to leave the lion's share of this answer to Luke. I just wanted to say one thing with respect to the beginning of your comment. When you were talking about, the powers that be definitely going to push back. They're not going to let us take it. Occupying, with our feet is step one. It is, and there is going to be a major pushback. Yes, it could come down to violence and so on. I think there's three sections to this overarching reality that we could just easily identify. Number one is, what the heck are we talking about definitions? What's freedom, what's truth, blah, blah. There might be some people we could wake up. I think there's more than enough of us who can agree, but there's simple things that we need to get straight, like a Declaration of Independence or whatever it is. Like you say, there's some defensive plans that come into play. There's all kinds of things, economy. There's all kinds of that. That's kind of number two, which is, how do we get there? The bridge. If we can agree on what we want, how are we going to get from right here to what we want, and what are the barriers? And then number three is how do we protect what we've earned and manage freedom in a way that, the world hasn't yet seen, the smallest government the world's ever seen. And I think a lot of that's common sense, but there are these three areas. I'm going to turn back over to Luke and see if he wants to answer the sentiments on where Alberta's at.
And of course, we're getting the message out. We're going to be meeting with people. We're trying to unite all the independent parties to understand our vision and our image. And you know what? If we get enough people here and we vote for our party and we outvote everybody, guess what? We're the government. And I'm going to go and expose all these contracts that the average citizen has never seen. I guarantee you, in your government archives in the United States and in Canada, there's contracts that go back to the 12th century, 13th century, 14th century that we're beholden to, which is insidious. And I'm going to expose it. If you saw a contract that was still hemorrhaging money back to some entity, the Crown Corporation, which is a separate entity in England, it's not the monarch. If you look on our maps, it says Crown Land. That's a private company. Why are we sending money to a private company in another country? And you're doing the same thing in the United States. So if we expose their lies and their stupid contracts, the people won't stand for it, and it'll be easy for the average person who maybe didn't agree with what we were doing to understand it. And the minute they have all their paycheck back and they have their investments back, they're not going to fight. The people who own these contracts are going to be upset, but guess what? They live in another country and they're so weak and pathetic. They're not going to come over here and do jack shit about it. They'll try to divide us. And if we got enough brains, we're going to outsmart them and we're going to outthink them. And they're not going to come over here and pull their NGO crap. Because as soon as an NGO starts up, they're going to get shut down by the people, because the people who have freedom, who experience it, aren't going to tolerate losing it. So there's a transition. There's a fight in the beginning. We'll see how that goes. But I'm telling you, people want something different. And it's either going to be forced on them when it collapses because they lose their money in their bank account, the bank sees their money, or the government comes in with some stupid CDC money and then shuts you off when you tweet something they don't like. How long are you going to put up with this? So it's collapsing one way or the other. You could vote in freedom for the first time in human history, or maybe we just rise up after it all falls apart. But in the meantime, this is our message. We're here. And if you like it, you can send us a message. You can talk about moving here, and we're going to organize and get bigger and bigger and bigger, because what we're talking about makes sense. Everything else anybody else is talking about is a pile of nonsense.
This is why we have this. If you guys see on the screen, Freedom's Phoenix, the rebirth of freedom from the ashes of Lady Liberty's torch. That was the point. Okay? This is back in the 90s. We understood what was coming, exactly what you guys are going. We get it, okay? We've been doing this a long time. And my thing was, it's a timing thing. It's going to come when, is it going to have to take the ashes? I mean, are people that stupid? Yeah, basically. But, it's just, and the Declaration actually said that. I don't know if you have it in here. In yours, it's like, we suffer these evils while they are sufferable. But sooner or later, people go, nope, I think I'll decline. Done. And what always drives it? It always becomes a food thing. It's not available. It's too expensive. I can't put food on my family. I can't. I got little babies crying for formula. When it's a food thing, the mindset changes, which is why they want to keep everybody fed. They want to put you in the matchbox and, everything a body needs, gruel coming out of the plumbing in a shipping container down by the light rail system in downtown Vancouver. I mean, that's what's coming. They'll provide your basic fundamentals of shut up and vote this way. So this is what you're up against. It has to be setting brush fires in the minds of men. It is everything that we went through the American Revolution. You could just carbon copy that on all over around the world. When you get someone like Javier Milei in Argentina coming out going, y'all suck, and I'm Captain ANCAP, and he gets support. We were covering this going up, talking to people in Argentina during this process. It was amazing to me. That, and they didn't see it. Oh, he's kind of uncouth. He's got a funny haircut like Trump, and kind of maybe not. And my mother-in-law doesn't like him. I mean, that kind of. I'm going. I don't think you guys realize what's coming, because I've seen this before. It was Brexit. It was Trump. It was the Lovolution. It was Perot in 92. It was when the people have a chance, and you could be that spark. You could be that opportunity. It gets to be a thing. Well, then they kind of come squash it and control it and whatever. But let's go over, before we end, I wanted to get over a lot of the stuff over here on your site. Secession is possible, okay? The only story ever lived and told. New borders, new possibilities. Only way forward, timeless ritual, uncharted, freedom land, no matter. New names, fresh and old lands, all possibilities. Alberta is the ideal location in Canada. So this secession is possible. That's kind of the platform is secession is possible. Define that. You're going, in what way is it possible?
Well, in what way is it not possible? I mean, again, you talk about a political solution ultimately occupy Wall. Pardon me?
What way is it not possible? I don't know. You hear Biden, he goes, yeah, you got, M16s. Well, I got F-16s. I kick your butt. It's kind of, it's just their mindset.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I mean, I think Occupy Wall Street was fascinating to me, too, when you think about it. And that really scared the powers that be, because you had leftists on protesting along with the rest of us. The whole system. I think people, as you say, I mean, it just happens. It's cyclical. This is humanity. We're here again. Thankfully, as organized as the enemy seems to be, Luke was pointing out that, they're weak. They're weak. They're weak in mind. They're weak in spirit. And even their brown boots are the weakest parts of us, because those people can't compete. That's why they work for the king. And so, I think you're on it, Ernie. We've been there for so long. The impatience is there. My entire adult life, Luke's entire adult life, we're at a breaking point. As Luke says oftentimes, maybe it has to all fall down. And maybe people aren't going to realize what people like you and I are discussing until it's almost too late and the walls have already fallen down around their head and they're scrambling for food. Hopefully it doesn't have to get there. Secession is possible. In a new way, in a bigger way. If we use the last American experiment for freedom as our example, let's do it again. Let's do it better. The smallest government the world has ever seen, they cannot stop us. Freedom is unstoppable once people have it in their heart and they start voting with their everything they've got. It is unstoppable. And so, I think, go ahead, Luke.
And you guys did it in the United States. You had the British Empire bootstepping all over you. You filed a letter of independence and made a declaration. You didn't ask permission. You didn't say, well, let's vote out the monarchy. No, you said we're leaving. And if you don't pack up your troops and leave, we'll shoot you in the face. This is life on Earth. This is how every border has ever been drawn up. We want to establish freedom for the first time.
I can see that.
Go ahead.
And it's a practical matter of, you pledge your lives, your fortune, your sacred honor, and they did. I mean, a lot of bad things happened to most of the people that signed the Declaration. They wanted to make sure of that, but they were willing to do that, and they were people of probably more comfortable circumstance than a lot of others. It's a unique kind of person that does this kind of stuff, like what a lot of us in the freedom community do. And it's a high standard you expect other people to live up to.
Yes.
And they have to beat that out of you. They got to fluoridate you just a little bit. They got to con you just a little bit. They got to metrosexual gay up just a little bit. It's not just the frogs are making gay. I mean, whatever. So it's, that not there's anything wrong with that, but I'm just like, I don't need a government program. It's just amazing. So this is the transparency of the internet, of what's coming out and people understanding. At some point, you have to realize that, I mean, they're pointy horn, pointy blood dripping, fang, pointy tail people. I mean, it's one thing that I realized after decades of doing this, only in the last, 6-7 years, that I started to realize all these politicians, all of these institutions, all these people that have been, I always knew something was wrong with them. There's just something wrong with them. And I figured out what it was as we were going through this. They don't have empathy. They're sociopaths. They're physically different. They're a different species, and they're attracted by the shiny badge and power. They go to that. That's what gives them self-worth. It's what they excel at, because they don't have empathy. They don't care. They don't care how it affects other people or even countries. They don't care, because they rule you because you let them. They go, Ernie, you conspiracists, do you think that they would, change to this and do to that, and the weather, the chemtrails, the fluoride, the GMOs, the mRNA? Do you think they would, I don't know, can they? Can they maintain, enhance, and expand their intrusiveness and control over population can they? Well, then they are. I mean, how hard is this? Because there's no mental, moral hurdle for them. They will do any and everything they can because they can, until they can't. You're talking about they can't. You're making it to where they can't.
Right.
The people are going, you can't anymore because you can't. Because, damn it, you can't. So I'm going, you have to you have to have faith in humanity to do that.
You're absolutely correct, and I'm just going to leave everybody with this. When you talk about power, because they can, during the pandemic, everybody knows Costco. Somebody at Costco head office said to tell all the managers and tell all the employees, you can tell people to wear a mask, you can tell people to wear it properly, and they gave clerks, little checkout clerks that work at Costco, the power over others. And let me tell you, if anybody's ever walked into Costco, boy, did they ever absorb that power like little
mask
freaking
Nazis.
dictators. That's the problem. You can't give a human being power over others. Yes. And so remember, in our system, everybody's liable. If I'm the administrator of our new Freedom Land, anybody can bring a charge against me if I'm violating their rights. And nobody's immune. And that's the way it has to be. Either we're all accountable or nobody's accountable. And so that's the way it's going to go.
Well, and I like, and I think you're right, Ernie, in pointing out, the differences between some of these, quote unquote rulers and their psychopathic tendencies, of course. But as Luke's pointing out, they can't affect all the things that they do to us without a bunch of, brown booted Nazi helpers, And those people, again, are some of the weakest in our society, and they are just quick to snap up that power. I mean, when that old quote, absolute power corrupts absolutely, what needs to be added to that is power attracts the corrupted and the corruptible.
Yep.
And so, yes, we understand the reality of the enemy that we fight. But as you're speaking to, freedom in people's hearts, the challenging part, as ostracization is the most powerful form of coercion on the planet, much more powerful than a gun to somebody's head. Human beings, most of them are sheep. I think that language is important. I think that's why the Bible uses it. Most people do not want to lead a charge. You said it takes a strange type of person to be at the tip of the spear in the freedom movement, and you're right about that. It takes real leadership, but leadership is around. Shepherds are here. I think what we need to do is gather as shepherds together. And that's our message, is truly for shepherds more than anybody else. Because if us shepherds can get together, everybody from Hancock right up around the world can get clear on a couple of early sentiments that we probably already agree on, pick a couple of locations and start voting with everything we've got. Right now, I think the freedom movement around the planet rightfully so, has been started, at the individual level, the family level, the local community. Every community is doing what it can. Every family's doing what they can. We need to start gathering together now. And Alberta's not the only place. I really want to stress that, I mean, in fact, Luke and I would move somewhere else if we thought that there was somewhere else that had a better a chance of making this happen. But we know that, Alberta has a lot of land, not a lot of people, and half of us are already had enough. It wouldn't take a whole lot of the rest of you freedom fighters getting over here before we could just say, enough is enough. This is our house. Take it or leave it.
Do you think that this is going to be I was very encouraged. There's a lot of things have encouraged me over the years. I've been doing this a while, and I'm happy for, a lot of things that have happened. Like this. You guys are an encouragement. The fact that you're doing it from Canada, I mean, yay, somebody in Canada finally got up and, this sucks. I mean, about time. So I'm looking for an opportunity to promote, help, but I don't want you to be discouraged by it not taking off right away, because I've always been, I'm going, when the phoenix comes up, it's going to be from ashes. It's going to have to get bad. And it was the end of 19 when the movie Joker with Joaquin Phoenix came out. Me and a friend watched it. We were in Massachusetts, and I'm like, the heck was that? Predictive programming. They're going to do something. And we had already made a decision we were going to hit the road on the Love Bus Liberty Tour thing, because I could see what was coming. I knew it was going to be a vaccine deal. I didn't know they were going to do a lockdown and, all the other crap that they did, but they didn't disappoint. I mean, they came out 2020 was it. We kind of predicted, it was James Corbett and I both. We were like, look, man, is 2020 it? Yep, this is it. Here we go. And, man, they didn't disappoint. But we knew it would also create a response, a blowback of people exactly like you that are even thinking this way and putting forth the effort. Will it work? Not, doesn't matter. It's the general public opinion of people are waiting for the leaders, the sheepdogs, the leadership to come out and offer an alternative that this could be done better. Would that be the best way? It doesn't matter. That there's something else other than that. We'll go down to 3%. I'm a none percent, but I mean, whatever. The thing is that we start to understand that we're being governed. It's like we're children. We need to have more of a voluntary or occupy the land more to concentrate in us, because it's easier to control. So we have, all right, well, on a worldwide basis, I want to get widgets from a kid in the Congo that came up with the new medicine of widget of, mating two worms together or some crap like that, and get it on, a Yelp review, eBay review of Amazon of whatever the heck, and free trade between the kid in Amazon and the kid in the Congo, delivered by drone, as it drops out of a starship. The future is freaking awesome. There's so much abundance, but everybody's trying to glean or get. If we get $5 in 5 minutes from everybody on the planet, then the world would be governed the way I want. Well, how about not govern? How about that? I vote that. I want more local community. I knew Russell Brand was going to take off. I go, watch this. Yeah, he's a lefty. I go, nope, watch what happens. Because he's talking decentralization. He's talking about more local. He's bringing it down. He can live in his own hippie commune, I don't care. But he doesn't want to force it on me. When he did his book, Revolution, and he kind of used a backward love in it from the Levolution logo, everybody was freaking out like he hijacked it. I go, I don't care. Peace. It's defined by the people anyway. So I'm looking for freedom's phoenix, of which you guys are representative of that. That's why I wanted to talk to you. I wanted to see what your version of it is. Well, we're out because Donna, my wife from Pennsylvania, and snow, we're done with snow. Snow ain't happening. I'd rather be 120-degree weather, she says, than, having to shovel snow. So that's so that's why we're not Free State Project. Up, in New Hampshire, we go up often every year. I wind up, like the past 15 years, I'm at Pork Fest because it's like salmon. I mean, you just wind up being there. I don't even plan on it. It just happens because it's hot here. That's one reason.
Yeah.
But the But the whole thing is that we can include Alberta in the freedom community. If you have a party, woo, it's a summer party. We go because we go up. We're going to be in Washington State, by the Columbia-Canadian border, Idaho area in the northeast Washington State. So that ain't that far. We can come by and say, "Yo, what's up? You got something going on?" We can say, "What's up?" So we'll be there this summer. The thing is that it's the attitude. It's the general public opinion. It's the water we swim in. It's the, I want to make this point with you guys so you understand, and we'll finish up with your platform. The one thing is that I always feel that it's individual, general public opinion that drives everything. Economics, how you raise your children, whether you do or do not get some government mandated shot, whether it's just opinion. It's just the people. They make the decisions. They're the force. And if you can free up the money, that changes everything. And so, of course, they're going to want to go to central bank digital currencies so they can social credit score, and you can, and you're not allowed, and you don't get to go on the plane. I mean, this is coming. That is going to turn into a food thing because because it always does. It's economics, and here it comes. So the people are going to resist. In what way? Doesn't even really matter. You just become ungovernable. When you become ungovernable, then they get desperate. The stuff they're doing now, the debts start to come in, the financial obligations, the taxes, the regulation. They're great white sharks feasting on a dead whale carcass, and sooner or later, there's just bone left and you're done. Then what? So it's going to be an individual thing, and alliances between different geographic areas will probably happen, but more importantly, it's going to be a common mindset. It's going to be, these are bad guys defined by this criteria. Declaration of Independence is a really good example. So I'm wanting to be supportive of you guys, but I'm not looking to jump from the frying pan into another government fire. Because when you say here, let's go to your site here again. Smallest government in history. No government departments outside of diplomacy, military, and tiny administrative staff. No tax department, health department, education department, food and safety, agriculture, etc. It's like Malay goes up in Argentina and goes, and this department, gone. Take a meat axe to it and be done with it. But this is when you say outside of diplomacy, military, tiny administrative staff. I know what they're going to do with those three things right there. Man, you just blew up government. Here it comes, So that's why you have to be eternally vigilant. That's why you got to be on.
Yeah, but
and then you try to create as little as possible.
Remember, there's only 3% that can ever change. So how out of hand can it get with 3%? Think about it.
No, I understand the sentiment. I understand.
Yeah, you're right about that slippery slope. I'll say.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to say, you were bang on there, Ernie, in terms of, mindset, this and that. People have had enough. They're going to stand up. I wanted to say two things on that note, and then I'll leave it to you to close this up whatever way you want. But, there's this term I've been playing with in my head lately. I don't know what else we're going to call it, but we could call it adult adolescence. Okay. When you think about what it's like to be a teenager, a lot of people are parents and, we were all kids at one point. At some point, you have to start making decisions for yourself. You want to make decisions for yourself, okay? And you don't need your mom and dad to tell you what to do in every case. Now, when we talk about sheep and humanity and, what kind of mindset it's going to take to grab freedom and your future, it's going to take a real adulthood. Because we have a plague of adult adolescents on the planet, if that at best, because these people are children. They want mom and dad government to solve their problems. They outsourced all social problems we used to solve as a village, but to a government. It's only exacerbating them. So you need to own personal responsibility and accountability. This adult adolescence is plaguing humanity. Humanity needs to grow up and recognize that you cannot turn to a mom or dad to tell you what to do. Otherwise, they're going to abuse you in a governmental sense. That's step number one. Number two, I'll just leave you quickly with a quote by C.S. Lewis, which is one of my favorite and is ever applicable. You know, Sallust said, that most men desire a just ruler over freedom, which is what we're just talking about. But C.S. Lewis says that, of course, the testing point of every virtue is courage. It's not just a virtue in and of itself. It's the testing point of them all. And so for anybody out there, you ask yourself what's important in your heart and how badly does that government boot need to squeeze down on your neck before you push back? Well, and what does freedom look like, and when does it happen, and when does that phoenix rise? Rises when our courage does, when our adulthood does. And now I'll just leave that question for the public, because this future that we're talking about could happen just like that, in relatively speaking. But that's what it's going to take, is people saying, I'm not going to be an adolescent anymore. I don't need mom and dad government to tell me what to do. I'm going to take charge of my own life, and my courage is going to lead the way.
This is one thing that we're putting up with as we're dealing with land. We just purchased 18 acres out in the desert, and we're going to make our own whatever. And in the process, there's many opportunities. Go along, get along, sign this, fill this out, agree to, do. And the purpose of government, protect my property rights, as long as I'm not bothering my neighbors, I'm not polluting the groundwater, the air, the whatever. Otherwise, what do you care? I mean, I'm glad to see in a lot of your documents of the freedom to just build and do and shelter and food and water bite me. This is when they start coming after that. That is fundamentally, they're gone bad. This is bad. They're bad. So one of the final things on your platform is freedom's natural next steps. Okay, let's go ahead and go over this. Freedom naturally needs to grow. Free speech, freedom of arms. Oh, I had guns in there. I knew you'd get to it eventually. All right. Freedom of arms, freedom of defense, free market enterprise, freedom of food and farm, freedom of land, freedom of education, freedom of medicine, freedom of religion, freedom of life. It's kind of a freedom thing. I get it. Freedom thing. So freedom's natural next steps. Define that. Why is it natural? Freedom is really a cornerstone of a lot of what you're talking about. Freedom is a party.com. Freedom, freedom, freedom. Before you go, I want you to define. I mean, it looks like you try and do a good job here, but, free speech, free what? Free of arms, free of defense, free of market, free. When you say free, what does that mean to you? You use it a lot. Is it defined? What do you mean?
When you are causing no harm to others and you're not causing harm to the environment,
Yeah, get on camera, man.
you can trade and do whatever you want with each other. Yeah, sorry. The government isn't there to be the middleman. If you and I, so you just bought 18 acres, and if you want to grow some food on those 18 acres, you could go to market and sell it. And I could come and buy it. And the government's not involved. And we're proposing that you would voluntarily pay 3%, because we're going to show you in transparency what we do with that 3%. We use it for defense, national defense, militias, and you can volunteer for that. And you would be glad to pay the 3% because of the things that we do with it, because you can go to the website in real time and see how much was collected and what's done with it. So you will voluntarily do that. Everything else is yours. And that's what I believe freedom is, and it would be. And I would believe that once people experience that for a while, they'll keep it.
We're out intentionally.
We got asked that question in the last interview, and it was
Go ahead.
That question, just really quickly, I think Luke nailed it, but I want to reiterate, freedom, Some people think it's complicated. It really isn't. Like Luke said, freedom is defined simply, as far as we're concerned, we're open to anybody else's suggestions and changing our mind if they can make it better. But as far as we can see, freedom means that you are free to do anything. You choose, you could dream up in your silly little head, as long as it doesn't cause harm to another human being or the environment or someone's property. And it might sound simple and a little trite, but that is it. You are free in every way, shape, under the form, under God, to do whatever you want on this planet, unless it causes harm. And if a man or a woman can stand up and say there was harm caused, then we'll head to the court system and figure that out. But otherwise, fill your boots. That's freedom.
You know, I'm with you, brother, and I can, you know, it's freedom and liberty. I want to make sure I more often define this point because I think it's pertinent. Freedom is like you say. You have the freedom to do pretty much whatever you want. I get up when I want. I, you know, put in my mouth what I want. I go and make and do and kind of freedom. I have the free. I'm not shackled. I'm not in a cell. I am free to make use of my life and my hands to craft raw materials into my property. Boom. You know, three ways of saying the same thing as past, present, future. I mean, you know, the philosophy of liberty about self-ownership. Very, very fundamental, basic. I am free. My hands are not handcuffed to do certain things. Liberty is a different thing. That's more of a social construct. You may be free to build that house, but are you at liberty to? You know, that kind of thing. So I'm looking for the liberty, a state of community, a social construct to be at liberty to exercise my freedom. They're kind of two different things. What you're advocating is to create a society and a geographic, jurisdictional borderline place of we are at liberty from government. We are in a state of liberty to exercise our freedom. You see my point? They're kind of two different things. You are, of course, free to do whatever the hell you can do, because you can. But are you at liberty? At liberty from what? Well, first you got to agree to this thing that, you know, they're either just, you know, toadies of the man, the crown, their, you know, force or your occupation or whatever, that you're not in a state of liberty, but you're still free to do whatever you can get away with. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to create a state of liberty for you to be able to exercise your freedom. I understand that. You know, I'm kind of geared more towards I just do it. I'm free to bite me and then expose them. This is my two things. I go, make them make you, make them say it. Okay? Well, you can't go, well, I'm going to do it. Well, we're going to have to take you to court. And I go, all right, and then you're going to have to say it, son bitch, say it. You know, I want them to say it, to define what it is they're doing, why, and their justification. So that's been my tactic and technique for a lot of stuff, is that as we go into this land build, I'm not trying to, you know, I'm hanging on by your fingernails, you're not waving your arms around, having the man, you know, come, but it's out in the middle of, on the edge of, really? Well, we had a complaint. No, you didn't, you lying sack of snot. Who complained? You know, I'm out in the day. Right. So this is going to be a lot of what you're saying, is exposing it without any expectation that government's going to slap themselves in the forehead and go, oh, I could have had a V8, man. You know, I could, as long as you explained it, Ernie, well, now you guys can be free. I'm so sorry that we did it wrong. You know, thank you for pointing it out. That ain't going to happen. I know that. What we've had the most success in is advocating like you guys are, to have people be able to express their support for something that was articulated well, that you guys have, yeah, what they said. I vote that. If you're going to do a party, the way parliaments work around the world, I'm sure in Canada, is that at some point they run as parties. I'm not even sure how that happens, but you have parties, they have candidates, then they get a number to get a majority to get a prime minister. Some of these little efforts have to come together in order to support a prime minister in the direction the country's going. You know, some, you know, like it, don't like it, whatever, but that's how it works. So I can see throughout history when you have people like you expressing yourself and pushing back in a semi or not so semi organized manner, what happens, it gets to a point where you have members in power. Yeah, I was always for freedom. Yeah, I'm glad you guys are doing it. I'm the freedom guy. I'm with you. You know what? We're going to change. We're going to alter. We're going to join together and be part of and the freedom thing. I've seen it in parliaments in the United Kingdom. I see it when the press, the pressure comes back from the people. They're like, "Oh yeah, I was always for freedom. Oh man, you just now I can. I'm with you guys." Whether they are or not, they're definitely for government. They're for staying. They're for being in charge. They're for something. But you have even a small effort like yours is the Kingmakers. It's the one little freedom group. If we get this property right or this Second Amendment right, or gun rights, or we get little free speech over here, little you can't seize our bank accounts, a little something, then we'll vote with you on this government. We'll get governed better. I understand the tendency for that. It may not necessarily be a step in the wrong direction. I'm just a little bit more anarchist about it. It's not a jurisdictional thing. It's a general public opinion of which you guys represent. So I am way more supportive of the fact that you're doing something rather than nitpicking on all the little whatever you're doing, that you're doing something, getting off your butt doing something. And the idea that you've taken the declaration, you're using what's happened and what's happened to Alberta and Canada and the world now to formulate a book that you get your ideas out there, that you're trying to push this. I wouldn't expect, wholehearted Sieg Heil heel clicking to whatever the heck it is that you're doing. But if you can garner enough support to have influence on the parliamentary process, it only takes a few percent. It only takes, the whole American Revolution was 3% of the people supported by like 15%. And that's why I've seen in politics, they freak at 15%. It's some magic number. You get 60%. Whoa, 60%. Holy crap. They're like a factor in something. I don't know. Well, I'm sure I can analyze it or whatever, but I'm telling you, in all my years of politics, when you hit 15, 16% of anything, man, here comes out the fangs. They want to make sure they get hold of something. So what you're doing, I wish to be supportive and want to make sure that people understand that you're an example of how the world changes. It's from efforts like this. Thanks for coming on and sharing with us.
Yes.
How would we keep up with what you're doing, your accomplishment?
Well, thanks, Ernie, for having us. First of all, the best place to stay in touch with us on the regular is the website, freedomisaparty.com. You can send us messages there. We will get back to it in short order as best we can. And I would encourage people also, much like you, Ernie, we're new at this in terms of spreading our message out in a very public way. We've worked for many, many years to refine it, the book, as I say, and so on. So I think the biggest thing, what you've done here, Ernie, in terms of giving us a platform, the more people that hear our message, the better. So, as always, vote with everything and support with everything you've got. Share this message around. If you like what you've heard on Ernie's program today, go to the website, send us a message, spread the website around. Go on all your social media channels, spread that around. Get us on more shows. Call the people you admire and you respect. Tell them to have us on their show. That's important. And of course, you can support with your wallets and stuff too. But I think at this stage, what we need most support, the biggest help that you can do is spread this message. I know there's a lot of great voices in the freedom movement. I don't hear anybody expressing things quite as cleanly and clearly as Luke and I have worked hard to ready this stuff for you guys in this way.
Before you go, I'd like to get a short statement from each of you on what it was that brought you together in making this effort. It's time. What happened? What was the spark that got you guys so motivated?
Well, I had put a lot of thought into this, and I created a manifesto that I had written down, and my grammar and spelling is not very good at all. And so I needed a book writer, and my ex-wife introduced me to Chris. And Chris, she told me that he was a writer, and I took my manifesto and gave it to him to make a book out of it. And that's where we met, and that's how we started working together. And we created that book that you mentioned there, the Freedom Handbook. So that's kind of where we got together with her. And Chris had said to me at that time that he liked the ideas and the expressions that I had written down. And then he expanded upon that. He took my 10,000 words to 130,000. So
God.
that's.
Yeah, and I'll say too on that note that Luke. I think Luke was already there. I was already there, as we discussed, as individuals. I think we were already freedom-loving people. And then when I initially was contracted as a ghostwriter to help him with that book, but I came back 2-3 weeks later and I said, you know what? I've never met a guy like you. You're kind of like me, and we agree on a whole heck of a lot. Would you consider a co-writing situation, a co-authorship? And that's how the book began, and the work hasn't stopped since. We then formed a bit of a think tank with some long-term aspirations the rest of my life, working in education and research and things like that. Incite with a C, Incite with an S, sort of a vehicle to house all of our lives' collective work together under the Freedom banner. A United Freedom Party being the most recent iteration, UFP here in Alberta. We're getting more and more serious. We've been at this for a long time. As I say, I think we got a ton
Are
of value.
either of you going to run for office
today? Yes, I would imagine that we're going to have to, although we don't need to. I mean, Pastor, I don't know if Luke and I need to be those people. I think at some stage, as you know, there's also a bit of protection. Sometimes you need to own something quite literally and be that leader in order to protect its integrity, as you're talking about the opportunity for it being watered down, whether it's through existing political channels or whatnot. That's the only risk. But yeah, I think we may end up having to go that route. Yeah.
Yeah, if you're going to have this kind of a effort, you know, the direction that you're wanting to take this, yeah, you're going to need representation. If you're going to be voting, you got to have something to vote for or somebody or something. I mean, and how you structure the party. But third party, new party, they in America, man, they do everything they can to try and make it as impossible as possible. You know, so I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do. Please stay in touch. I want to know how this goes. I want to, you know, because you're an Incite. You know, I understand your point. It is an inspiration for others, and I think you've done a good job today of doing that. Thank you for sharing with us, making sure, go check out the site. It is freedomisaparty.com. And, you know, hold on a second. I want to talk to you guys a little bit off air. Incite. I think that's kind of cool, you know, get inspired. freedomisaparty.com. We'll keep you guys informed what happens. What's up? Hold on a little bit. Peace.
I love this thing. He's just like Alex Jones. And he's a huge friend of James Corbett, which is amazing. Because you can't get cooler than he is. If you know who James Corbett is, do you think that's awesome?